Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naraban Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time to continue our discussion on the Pathfinder role-playing game system. We were talking about the environments you'd be encountering last time. We finished up talking about dungeons. Let's talk about the wilderness. The areas outside of any city or anything that you're going to be probably traveling through and exploring. The wild wildernesses of areas outside of the purview, where you can find all kinds of dangerous monsters, possibly deadly weather, possibly getting lost. Let's dive into getting lost, though. As long as you're traveling a trail, a road, going along a river or stream, or even possibly going along a coastline, you're not going to get lost. You don't have to worry about it. As soon as you go into any kind of cross-country, though, it has the option of possibly getting lost. You could travel an area that has very difficult terrain and it's very hard to notice landmarks, like in a moor or in a forest or even like a very mountainous area that doesn't have a lot of landmarks. If that, you're possibly getting lost. On the other hand, conditions can get bad. If it gets really foggy out, or if you're traveling at night and don't have a light, even if you have dark vision, the possibility of seeing important landmarks that will tell you where you are dwindle a lot. Dark vision is only so far that you can see. The chances of seeing one of those landmarks, pretty slim. You're going to have to make survival checks in order to try to avoid getting lost. Every hour, depending on the terrain you're in, you make a survival check, and that will tell you the DC. A couple little modifiers here. If you succeed at it, you're continuing along whatever general trail you want to take. If you fail, you've gotten lost. You've lost your way. Granted, if you have 5 ranks in knowledge local or knowledge geography, you get +2 to that survival check to begin with. So if you do have some knowledge of the local area or the general geography, you get a little bonus to that. But once you're lost, you're going to have to find your way. Well, you're going to have to realize you are lost. Every hour, you can make a survival check. DC 20, -1 for each hour you've been lost beyond the first one. And you can attempt to figure out, hey, I'm lost. So the more hours you're lost, the easier it is to realize that you've been going around in circles or wandering around randomly and have gotten lost. Now, once you realize you've gotten lost and are trying to regain your trail, that's a little more difficult. The DC is 15 + 2 per hour you are lost. So, yes, the easier it is to regain your trail, the longer you are lost, but then it is harder to get back on where you were trying to be. It becomes very difficult, and you can even fail your check again once you've sort of regained your trail, and, once again get lost. Now, granted, if you have one person leading you, they're going to be making all these checks and they're going to be relying on it. But you can have more than one person make a survival check and possibly try to find a trail, especially when you get lost. The problem is you're going to directly tell the characters whether they know if they've succeeded or not. They don't know. What you're going to do is each secretly tell one of them the direction that they think they're going. And, well, of course, they might have conflicting directions. Each one of them might know something different. If only one of them succeeded and the other 2 failed, they could have different directions they're going to point out. So it can be very difficult, especially if multiple people are trying to navigate to escape from being lost. Now, there are some ways, of course, to do it. First off, you could regain your trail. Yes, it seems very difficult, but that's a possibility that, yes, I could find, oh, hey, I regained my trail. I successfully can then get back to where I need to. Second one you can do is, of course, you could randomly run into a landmark. If you know there's some kind of landmark in the area and you just by chance locate it by accident in your wanderings and being lost, then yeah, you've succeeded in figuring out, hey, that's where I need to go. The other thing is conditions could improve. If it was foggy out or it was night and it becomes day, you get a survival check at +4 in order to regain your trail, an automatic one, without any of those penalties, because all of a sudden conditions are better and it's a lot easier to regain that course that you had originally lost. Now let's talk about the forest terrain, because that's a traditional terrain you're going to be getting into. There are 3 types of forest: sparse forest, medium forest, and dense forest. The thing is, if you get into a large enough forest area, you might find all 3 of these types of forest within it. On the outer edges, you might find sparse forest. As you go deeper into it, you might get into medium and eventually dense in the very center of it. Each of these has a number of features associated with it that can appear in really many of these types of forest and these categories of forest. Each of those is the percentage chance that you would encounter it over the course of the time. I will talk about each of these features individually, but you just have to think about that some of them will appear more likely in other areas, and some of them might not appear in area. Let's talk about trees, which is the one that's probably going to show up in, well, all of them. Your average tree doesn't really fill up a square. It's something that gives you a partial cover, so +2 AC, +1 reflex save, so it's not really blocking you. You can be in the same square as it. If you really want to climb it, it's DC 15. If you want to chop it down, it has an AC of 4, hardness of 5, and 150 hit points. These are the standards. There can be variations among the trees, but you just have to think of the standard tree that you're going to encounter that, of course, you can be kind of hiding behind a little bit. That's what's going to be. When you're getting into the denser and medium forest, you can find massive trees. These take up a 5-foot square. They are much bigger. They are just as easy to climb, DC 15, but they have an AC of 3, same hardness, 5, 600 hit points in order to cut them down. They are incredibly difficult and time-consuming to cut down, but you could if you really wanted to. Now, when you're traveling in a forest, you will find undergrowth. Traditional undergrowth is pretty sparse. Granted, when you're traveling through it, it counts as difficult terrain, costing 2 squares of movement, and it provides a basic concealment, the 25%. The thing is, you can also find dense undergrowth. Dense undergrowth costs you 4 squares of movement to move 1 square effectively. So 5 feet of movement, you'd have to spend 20 feet to move that way. It provides a 30% concealment, so it's a really unusual number, but it is a different number. Both of these, though, affect acrobatics and stealth trying to move through them. It makes it more difficult to do either of them. Now, you could be in the forest canopy. Now, the canopy can provide cover from people on the ground. That's the easy part of it. But if you're getting into the medium or dense forest, then, of course, it could also provide concealment. There are creatures, like elves and such, that make homes up in canopies. So moving into a canopy and traveling within it is actually something that could possibly occur in the course of your adventure. Now, you could find fallen trees. That seems like something that's common. You treat these as low walls. As the same rules as low walls, it costs you 5 foot of movement to cross over a fallen tree. This is going to assume it's a big tree that you're just kind of moving over. Now, if you're going on some kind of trail or road through the forest, they don't provide cover, they don't provide concealment, they're just an open area that you're moving through. So you have to remember that when you're traveling through the forest. It doesn't provide you the same benefits to defenses as if it would be traveling through the undergrowth. Granted, it's a lot easier to travel through the forest then, and you don't have to worry about getting lost as much, but still. Now, the thing is, forest blocks line of sight. It locks your perception. If you're within a sparse forest, usually about 3d6 times 10 feet is how far away as you can see into the forest. In a medium, it's 2d8 times 10 feet, and at a dense, it's 2d6 times 10. So at most, you can notice something 120 feet away, if you get really lucky. At worst, 20 feet away. Now, the thing is, forests often have a lot of noise and actually also interfere with your ability to hear. There's a lot of things like birds chirping, little noises, insects going on in a forest. Unlike normal space, where every 10 feet the DC to hear something increases by 1, it increases by 2 in a forest. So it becomes much more difficult the farther you go in a forest to hear something. Much quicker than what would be in normal land. So that's it for today. I talked about, of course, entering into the natural world, exploring your environment. Getting lost, possibly, and all the rules about getting lost and finding yourself when exploring the natural world and the environments you'll find out there, getting out into nature. I then dived into talking about forests, one of the terrain types, getting all the information about the various things you'll encounter in the forest and what it means for various things about combat and just encountering them in general. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about the major hazard that you can find in a forest, forest fires, and move into talking about the marshes, hills, and mountains terrains that you might encounter when you're exploring the wilderness. So if any questions, comments, anything you say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Show support for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.